giving you an opportunity to get the full story from the people who tell it best. This is Mediacom News Leaders.
Hello everyone and welcome to Mediacom News Leaders. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Carol Kelly. Joining us today from Shelter House, here's a board member on Shelter House, Carrie Schuettpelz. Carrie, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in Shelter House.
Sure. So I worked in the Obama administration for about 7 years in DC. I was a homelessness policy advisor for many of those years. And when I moved back to Iowa, I'm originally from Cedar Rapids. So when I moved back to Iowa, I wanted to continue to be involved in homelessness policy. And Shelter House is just such a fantastic organization in Iowa City. So it made sense to be involved with them.
7 years, that sounds like a lot to experience homelessness across the country. Can you tell us about some of the things that you did see or maybe solutions that you've seen?
Yeah, I traveled a lot as part of the job, which was really important and helpful because it's good to see not only what's working, but what's not working. And so that we as the federal government could tailor solutions at the national level based on what communities had discovered on their own. The homelessness system has really evolved over the last 5, 10, 15 years. It used to be the case that people thought about housing as housing ready. And so we waited to house people who were experiencing homelessness until they were stable in a whole variety of ways, whether that was being on their meds, going through job training, taking care of mental health and physical health instability. But what communities discovered was that's really hard to do without a house. And so imagine filling a prescription with nowhere to live, right? Imagine trying to get a job with nowhere to live. And so over the course of time, things really evolved to the point where it became housing first. The first thing we do is housing. And then we can start taking care of things like mental health issues, substance abuse issues, job placement and readiness, reconnecting with family, all of those things that we consider to be part of stability, but that require some sort of housing stability.
Talk to us about how these lessons and the lessons that you learned across the country, how that's helped Shelter House in Iowa City.
Shelter House, in a lot of ways, is best practice, really and truly. The types of things that they're doing along the housing first model is really remarkable. They've just opened a building in Iowa City called Cross Park Place, which is permanent supportive housing. And what that means is exactly what it sounds like. It's permanent housing in the sense that it's not going to be yanked away. And it's supportive in the sense that it includes those wraparound services that help people get stable in all of those other facets. It's essentially an apartment building, right? And so there's 24 units. They're amazing units. They're nice. They're brand new. There's community space on the first floor. I mean, it's sort of everything that we think about as being the right way to approach homelessness.
I can imagine there was a lot more homelessness when it comes to numbers in the other communities that you've worked in. Do you approach the solution the same way?
I think so. I mean, in some ways it's an issue of scale, right? How do we take these solutions and scale them to the problem? And so a 24-unit solution like Cross Park Place is going to work in Iowa City because the problem is a little bit smaller in terms of numbers. If you're looking at a New York City or a Los Angeles or a Chicago, obviously you're going to have to take that to scale. You're going to have to replicate that model over and over and over again. But when you think about best practices, when you think about things like permanent supportive housing, the other things that Iowa City and Johnson County are doing a fantastic job of is getting the community involved, getting law enforcement involved. Instead of arresting folks who are living on the street, working with them, getting them the help that they need, bringing in the healthcare and the mental health services. All of those things can be done regardless of whether a community is small, medium, big, et cetera.
And to contact Shelter House and those services that we talked about today, where can someone learn a little bit more or where to start?
So there's always the website, shelterhouseiowa.org. I actually check Facebook. They keep their Facebook very updated. One of the things they do is on Tuesdays, they put a list out of all of the things that they need donated. So if you're interested as a community member in doing donations, getting involved in some of the events, that's a great place to look.
Doing amazing work for the community. We appreciate the time, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Mediacom News Leaders, your opportunity to get the full story from the most reliable sources exclusively on Mediacom News Leaders.